House Intel Chairman Adam Schiff repeatedly went out of his way to claim that Trump, not just Russia, Trump colluded with Russia, even when he had zero evidence of it. Now the White House is calling for his resignation. Joining me now, Assistant to the President, White House Director of Strategic Comms, Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes, Schiff isn't going to resign. And Congresswoman Tlaib tonight told the Democrats, she has a lot of juice now, she has a lot of power with Tlaib, says do not give up on impeachment. What say you?
Well, I think that the Democrats' ultimate goal is impeachment. And I actually think it makes Nancy Pelosi nervous because she's saying, well, we might not want to go there. We need a bipartisan effort to move towards impeachment. But for the Democrats, from day one, their goal, and they run on trying to impeach the president. And so I think the American people clearly see through this. I think we know that the Democrats have gone way too far. They've been reckless in this process. They have been irresponsible in terms of, for 2 years, spending hour after hour after hour making this, building this narrative, building this case that the president colluded with the Russians. And Mueller report, obviously, as we know, the president's now fully exonerated.
I want to put up a couple of graphs from the letter from Barr, which I think are important. Let's put up the first one, okay? Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and I concluded that the evidence developed during the special counsel's investigation is not sufficient to establish the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. Special counsel recognized that the evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference, and that while not determinative, the absence of such evidence bears upon the president's intent with respect to obstruction. What does that mean? There's no underlying crime. So the president, everything he did was out in the open. It was like he's frustrated, he's mad. I mean, imagine if you're accused of something, basically treason.
That's right.
And all these people are against you. I'd be really mad, too. And, in fact, they did accuse me of various things with the Russians. I'm like, are you kidding me? But you're the president of the United States. He was really mad. So that was supposed to be obstruction? And Mueller tried to interview the president, I guess, and they couldn't get anyone at DOJ to think that that was going to be a good idea. You didn't have the evidence of any crime to interview the president or subpoena the president. They had no evidence of any intent to obstruct justice, period. That's clear here.
It's very clear. And I think that this is like the brilliance of the president, which is that he's resilient. Despite the fact of all the pressure of this investigation, despite the fact that it's been over 8,500 articles written, stories aired in CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, and MSNBC, what we've known is that this president has been in high gear. He has stayed focused on the economy, on the trade deals, on securing the border, and keeps fighting every day for the American people. And I have to say, it really shows that the Democrats, they've made a big gamble with this, and that they lost because they thought this Mueller report was going to be their winning.
They hurt the country.
Key.
Let's talk about what happened to the country. They divided this country. They made politics even more toxic. It did frustrate the president. I can't blame him for being frustrated. He's trying to, like, make good deals for the country. Maybe we work with Russia on some things. We don't on others because they really bug us on other things. But all of this had the taint of this investigation hanging over it. Now he's free of that. He's free of this stuff now.
But think about how much they tried to destroy
our president. But he's right. I think only Trump could have withstood this.
Only this president could have.
Like, all people would have just, like, wet themselves. Exactly. And just was like yes. I'm sorry, some of the other Republicans.
Which is something that is so great about this man is that he fights. And he was not going to give up.
What's the lesson? The Democrats are fighting, Stu. The Republicans have got to fight for this president's agenda, Mercedes.
They have to.
They've got to fight for the president's agenda.
And it's the right agenda. I mean, it's clear that based on his accomplishments alone, when you're looking at this booming economy impacting so many communities, the fact that he's standing tough on China and got to support him on that. And by the way, what would you agree with the reckoning? There has to be a reckoning. We really feel that there needs to be accountability. I mean, this has been irresponsible reporting. It's journalism at a point that they've lost their way in terms of being objective.
What about the people at DOJ who pushed this investigation?
I mean, I think one of the things that we've learned is that there's those elements in the FBI, as we've seen with Andrew McCabe, he's been under investigation. He lied under oath. That helped create and foment this horrific situation that we've seen. And at the end of the day, the president has been exonerated.
Beto yesterday basically said there's basically still evidence of collusion.
Oh, they're
Beto, Kamala Harris.
Exactly. To them, they really want to continue campaigning.
They're the truthers.
Right. They want to campaign on this collusion. They want to keep bringing doubts in the minds of the American people. Mueller report is very clear. The president has been completely exonerated, and we're moving ahead with the agenda. The Democrats can continue playing these politics, but at this moment in time, I think the American people want to see solutions, and that's what the president's working on, results for the American people.
Hit the road. He's got to hit the road and sell this agenda,
Absolutely.
Mercedes. Go to Blue State America, sell this agenda. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And we did not coordinate.
we
This is not collusion on outfits, okay? Different shade.
I want to bring in now Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief at thedailywire.com and author of the new book, The Right Side of History, How Reason and Moral Purpose Made the West Great. You and I were going to talk about sundry things tonight, and now we are focused in on something that you have been watching, and that is how Democrats deal with this. Your first reaction, and then I want to bring in some tweets from some of those 2020 Democratic hopefuls.
Well, it's astonishing to watch as the Democrats turn their lonely eyes from Robert Mueller, who was supposed to be the deus ex machina who stopped President Trump, to the Southern District of New York. They're doing that in real time. They're claiming that maybe, just maybe, once the entire report is released, then it will tell us something different from the fact that there are no indictments, as we now know. And it will be amazing to watch them shift the goalposts. I'm seeing the media already suggesting that the big story is that President Trump is going to pounce. Whenever Republicans are exonerated of something, then it becomes a story about Republicans pouncing. It's never about media malfeasance for 2 years, suggesting beyond the evidence at hand that President Trump was responsible for deep, dark collusion with Russia that ended with Hillary Clinton losing the election.
You know, Ben, you and I have talked before, and it's always interesting when people jump the shark on things. So Republicans should hold their enthusiasm on behalf of the president, and Democrats should hold their enthusiasm either thinking it's a dud coming out in this report and getting thirsty for more investigations. Here's what we have. 2020 Democratic hopeful Kamala Harris, senator, says this in a tweet. Americans deserve to know the truth now that the Mueller report is complete. The report must be released immediately, and AG Barr must publicly testify under oath about the investigation's findings. We need total transparency. Has William Barr, either previously in his confirmation hearings or anything you've heard since, Ben, said anything other than he will follow the rules and regulations and release the report? It's his intention to release as much as possible.
No, I mean, I've heard nothing except that from Attorney General Barr, and I would expect that he releases as much as he legally can, because if I'm President Trump, that's actually what I want released. Plus, AG Barr has already vowed that that's exactly what he's going to do. We keep hearing that President Trump obstructed the investigation over and over and over. There is not one iota of evidence that he actually obstructed Robert Mueller, and I wouldn't expect him to obstruct Attorney General Barr here either, because the bottom line is no indictments. If there were going to be more indictments, you would expect it to be of all the people around President Trump. Forget about President Trump himself. You know, there are people on the left suggesting that the reason no indictments came down is supposedly because you can't indict a sitting president. Okay, but you could indict everybody around him. None of those people got indicted. So that suggests that this may be a giant nothing burger. We don't know yet. But the Democrats already suggesting preemptively that this is all a giant cover-up is just as they shifted the goalpost from it was collusion first, then it was obstruction. Now they're shifting to preemptive narratives about cover-ups that haven't taken place yet.
You are crisscrossing the country often. I see you popping up at universities and other places and talking to future voters, present voters. What is the temperature of people out there about this subject matter? We saw recently polling which showed that there was a growing number of Americans who felt like this was, in fact, what the president has called it, a witch hunt, which means it's far and broad and wide. And what are people telling you?
I mean, what I keep hearing over and over is that people were ready to hear the facts, but in the end, they don't feel like there was going to be much that comes down. And if it turns out that not much came down, after Democrats overpromised for years on end that there would be hard evidence that President Trump skewed the election with the help of Vladimir Putin, that's going to blow back on them. I mean, you promise your base that you're going to get President Trump out of office and have him frog marched like the Krasenstein brothers, and things are going to go wrong for you when that turns out not to be true.
This is just coming in. Senator Booker's campaign has just released an email urging supporters to add their name to a list if they support the release of the Mueller report. If you sign, it leads to a page to donate to the campaign. This is coming from my executive producer, normally on Outnumbered Overtime. So fundraising off of this. Again, I mean, the idea of jumping the shark is what gets you in trouble with the American people, because, as you said, they just want the facts.
I mean, it is such an obvious ploy. Every single thing that can be used for a fundraiser is used for a fundraiser by candidates for political office, obviously. But preemptively suggesting that Barr is going to engage in a cover-up, so sign a petition and give me money, is a pretty absurd use of everybody's time and money.
Then, you know, in terms of this new book that you've come out with and talking with young people, and we saw the president sign an executive order this week on free speech, the idea that people listen and talk to each other from every political avenue. What's going on right now should be a bipartisan effort to find out how much, if in fact, because we already know they did, how much the Russians meddled in our presidential election. I want to give you last word on where you think we are right now.
I mean, I think where we are is that Democrats are going to have to double down on what they already believed about President Trump. And I think that the best way for President Trump to be fully exonerated with the American public is for Barr to release as much as possible, which I think he will do. Is that going to stop the investigations? No. Will it stop the Democrats from looking to the SDNY? Of course not. But at the very least, it should give us a final word on what happened with Trump and Russia in 2016. So far, the only evidence available appears to be nothing criminal.
Yeah, everybody's saying the same thing. They want to see it all. And now we've got Senator Booker. Of course, he's a 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful, trying to raise some donation money off of it. But we all want the same thing, and that's just the facts. Ben Shapiro, always great to have you on the program. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
The Democrats looking to challenge President Trump in 2020 are calling for the full release of the report, but some are already pointing out that the election will be more about different issues than the now completed investigation. Correspondent Peter Ducey takes a look at the candidates' strategies going forward.
Beto isn't ready to let go.
Do you think it's time for the Democratic challengers to put this behind them, as a lot of Republicans now have been suggesting, or do you...
To put what?
The Mueller investigation.
No.
But other Democrats are warning that it'll be tough to win next year if candidates keep clinging to collusion.
In 2018, the election was about Republicans not kicking people off of their health insurance for pre-existing condition. 2020 is going to be very focused on economic issues. So guess what? We can do two things at once. Ensure the law is followed and make sure we're focusing on an optimistic economic agenda.
The surging South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg seems to agree that Democrats stand a better chance running on policies, not probes.
I think this is further evidence that it would be a mistake for Democrats to think that the way for the Trump presidency to end is by way of investigation. That could, of course, happen, but we've got to be paying attention to the kinds of conditions that made it possible for somebody like him to get here in the first place.
Candidates still haven't seen Mueller's report, but they're dissatisfied with the abridged version from the Attorney General. Stacey Abrams, still considering a 2020 bid, said, quote, "I tend to think it's kind of like having your brother summarize your report card to your parents." Cory Booker believes that, quote, "The American public deserves the full report and findings from the Mueller investigation immediately, not just the in-house summary from a Trump administration official." And Elizabeth Warren tweeted, "Congress voted 420-0 to release the full Mueller report, not a summary from his hand-picked Attorney General. AG Barr, make the full report public immediately." The swells gathered to see Bernie Sanders in California this weekend erupted in cheers at the mere mention of an unredacted Mueller report.
I don't want a summary of the report. I want the whole damn report.
The front runner is behind the rest of the pack, though, because we still don't know what potential candidate Joe Biden makes of Mueller's findings. But that could change tomorrow. Biden has an event in New York, ironically at a restaurant called the Russian Tea Room. Brett?
Peter, thank you.